Hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Hodge, producer of Learning Experiences at the National Restaurant Association show, and I would like to thank you all for participating in this webinar titled Igniting a Team of Top Performers. Before we get started, I'd like to cover a few logistics for the webinar. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. You may type questions at any time using the questions window in your GoToWebinar screen. We will do our best to answer as many questions as possible before we conclude. If your question is not addressed, we will follow up via email. You will also receive a brief evaluation after the webinar. We ask you to please take a few minutes to provide your feedback and suggestions on topics that you would like us to consider as we develop future programs. We are recording the webinar, so you will receive an email later this week with a link to the on-demand recording and the PDF of the presentation. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, TJ Shire, who is the president and founder of Smart Restaurant Group, a large Which Superior Sandwiches franchisee, and a prominent speaker and consultant in the hospitality industry. He designs training and guest service programs and presents to managers and franchisees on topics such as building a team of top performers, hiring, guest service, and catering. He has written numerous books and has authored over 10 articles on guest service and motivating today's generation. He has a BBA and an MBA from the University of Texas and speaks dozens of times a year at manager and franchise conferences and our own National Restaurant Association. Please join me in welcoming TJ.
Well, good morning or afternoon, everybody. Looking forward to spending the next 35, 40 minutes talking about how you can ignite a team of top performers, and I'll get into a little bit more of kind of how the session will flow. But I would venture to say that most of us in the business of serving guests in the restaurants or other food service establishments are challenged primarily by finding the right employees, trying to keep the right employees, trying to get rid of the wrong employees, and dealing with labor and rising costs and all those kind of things. And so that's really what I want to walk you through today. Primarily, to give you a little bit of background, I actually spent 18 years working at Chuck E. Cheese Pizza. I left there quite a while ago, actually, but as the VP of Field Support. So as I like to joke around, I love that company, but if I could hire people to come work at Chuck E. Cheese, I think I can teach people how to come and work for your restaurants as well. But I've spent the last 18 years consulting primarily in the areas of training, staff retention and incentivizing, and guest service with a wide variety of concepts, from the fast casual, QSR, all the way up to kind of the high-end fine dining with some of the people you see here, and even into retail. As they mentioned earlier, I've been a franchisee of Which for about 12 years, and our group started really kind of out of the gate measuring guest service and putting a lot of the things into place that I speak about at my sessions. And so what I really want you to hear is this is kind of like the old hair club for men president. I'm not only a client, I'm the president of the company. I use all of these tools in my business, whether it's in my own restaurants or with some of the clients that I consult with. So these are proven tactics. They're very cost effective, if not free. And our results as a franchisee of Which far exceed the other franchisees in our areas. And I've had stores in Houston and Dallas, and outside of the Austin area, we at one point had 17 of these restaurants. And our volumes are significantly higher. Our sales trend is significantly better. And I firmly believe it's because we've always measured guest service, and we've always had an approach to people that has driven our mantra, which is make the guests say, wow. Over those past few years, I've written a couple books on restaurant operations, on how to motivate hourly employees and how to recruit and select. So again, I've kind of got a wide variety of a background here, and probably most importantly, I've had two kids that are really squarely in this generation. My kids are 25 and 23. They both worked in the industry for a while. They're out and about in different areas now, but I grew up in a generation that was a lot different. What I thought was from this generation. And in reality, it's not. Turnover at the hourly employee level, from what I've read, is the same now as it was 30 years ago when I was kind of cutting my teeth in the industry as an hourly employee. And many of us kind of sitting on the porch complaining about the good old days think this generation is solely focused on me, and it's they're the problem, not us. And I learned an incredible lesson when my daughter was in high school, because I watched her when she joined the high school band, and I watched probably one of the best leaders I've ever seen take 300 high school kids and in the span of 8 weeks turn what we've always believed is a generation of people who are lazy, they're entitled, they care about them, and 12-minute show, make very, very, very few mistakes and do unbelievable to me 3 ingredients: how you hire and who you hire, how you train them, and how you reward them to make sure they stay with you and the right ones stay with. Think about is recruiting is very, very similar to fishing. So as an example, I live in Dallas, Texas. Okay, if I want to go catch a shark, I can't drive 45 minutes north of me to the Red River on the border of Oklahoma and catch a shark. I could fish out in the Red River all day. I could fish at one of these lakes around the area here. I could fish morning, noon, and night. I could spend a ton of money, and I could try really hard. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to catch what I want. The analogy here is if we want to catch great restaurant employees, i.e. sharks, we have to know where they hang out. We have to know how to chum the water to attract the right people to come to us in the first place and kind of get the sharks coming in closer to the boat. We got to put the right bait, have the right hook and the right rod and reel out there, because if we don't do those things, we're never going to catch a shark, even though we'll spend a lot of money and spend a lot of time doing it. So really what you need to do is understand who your shark is and what I call them talent chips, what talent chips the people have. Now, this is an example of what the NFL, the National Football League, this is their quote unquote talent chips. And you can see here down the column, down the left side is all the different drills that they have, and across the top is quarterback, running back, fullback, wide receiver, and so forth. These are the skills or the times or the high jump, however high they need to jump, or those kind of things. These are the skills that those players need to have by position. Us in the restaurant business need to follow this lead. When the Super Bowl ends and the Cowboys don't win again, my hometown team's over the last quarter century, they, along with almost every other team, has to figure out how to get better. We as restaurant operators need to take that same approach. Where are my holes? In the case of the football contract, people's contracts run out, so people leave the team. They have a draft. They actually go to what's called a combine, which is essentially a large tryout, and they evaluate talent to see who is going to fit in. They may need a quarterback. They may need a linebacker. They may need a defensive end. All those positions have different talent chips. And in our case, in the restaurant business, whether you're full serve, fast casual, QSR, whatever it is, you need to know what talent chips each of those players have. Bartenders need to have, obviously, a set of skills. They need to have a little flair. They need to have a lot of showmanship and those kind of things. And that skill set's entirely different from a cook. If you're in a chain, your back of the house needs to follow recipes. If you're more chef driven, where you allow a little more creativity, your talent chip requirements are going to be different than somebody else. So first and foremost, know what talent chips you need by position. Secondly, you need to know where your holes are. You need to know where your holes are, and you also need to know what your turnover is so you can figure out how many people I may lose in the next 30 days or the next quarter. As an example, in my case, we run 84% turnover in our business, well above, or well, far more better than most of the other concepts in QSR fast casual, a far cry from PAL's at 37%. But if I have 10 employees in my restaurant and I have 84% turnover, I'm going to lose 8 a year. So about every quarter, I'm going to lose 2 people. Now, it's not linear like that, because when school starts or school ends, that things may change. But if I know who's on my team, I know when they're leaving, if they're going to leave, and if I know I've got some people that I need to upgrade because we're not good enough, that helps me when I know the people that I need, the positions I need, and the talent chips. So now I can go out and catch a shark. And that's where I need to kind of go out in the right ocean. I don't just go out into a lake to catch a shark. So when we recruit, probably many of us use websites like this, like Craigslist and Indeed. If you're up in Canada, you may use Kijiji, ZipRecruiter, some of these other ones. And I use some of these. And please let me caveat this. When I'm going to try and catch sharks, I need to put as many hooks in the right part of the ocean with the right bait at the right time. There's not a silver bullet. It's actually a series of silver bullets to get these things done and solve your problem. So these are probably the common sites that you use. Some of you may look at Craigslist and go, yeah, that's kind of just like throwing a big net out in the ocean and scooping up everything and hope you catch a shark by pulling a bunch of other stuff in the boat that you're not looking for. And you're right. But there are little things that you can do. As an example, even with Craigslist, the number one time people look for jobs on Craigslist is Saturday morning and Friday night. So don't post a Craigslist job on Monday, because by Friday night or Saturday, when the actual fish are biting, you're so many pages down, they're never going to find you. Post the job Friday late in the afternoon, Saturday morning, so you'll be at the top of the page right when the people are looking. Put video links in there, which I'll talk about a little bit in a second. The other thing is you have to look at some of these other sites that are out there. I use a mix of Snag a Job, Career Plug. ShiftGig is kind of like an Uber, where you can just hire people for shifts, kind of like a gig mentality, just like Uber does. It's not everywhere, but there are all these other sites that you need to keep out there, because you need to have as many hooks out there. And if one's not working, reel it in, stop using it, try another one, go back to that one a little bit later down the road. So you have to have these hooks out in the right spot. The other thing, you really need to get rid of the C players. And I know it's very, very tempting when you're short-staffed or you're working a bunch of hours to keep the C players. And I would tell you that the C players tend to never quit because we let them stay. But if you have a C player, you might as well just hang up some of these signs that look so you're so desperate. Tuesday only now hiring. What happens when somebody, you don't fish just on Tuesday? Your likelihood of success isn't going to be out there. Look at what your recruiting message is right inside and right outside your restaurant. Now, obviously, many of us may not hang out at now hiring on desperate, please come to work for us right away type of thing. But when we have C players and you have great applicants coming in and we have them served by C players, they're going to look at that and say, I would never want to work here because I wouldn't fit in here. This is a group of losers, whatever the case may be. So really think about what message you're putting out there. Now, these next couple slides, you may or may not be able to do these things, but I want you to understand how competitive the contest is to catch talent. So when we're out there fishing for a shark, there's a ton of other people out there as well. I was speaking at a conference in Hawaii a couple months ago, and I saw this Jack in the Box banner right across the sign from the convention center where I was speaking. $10,000 sign-on bonus for managers. Pizza Hut in a small town outside of Austin, Texas, paying hundreds of dollars of sign-on bonuses. We're in a hyper competitive market. So if you don't have a great message out there, you're not going to attract the sharks. I stopped at a McDonald's driving to one of my restaurants yesterday, and it says now hiring Wednesdays from 2 to 3 o'clock. How many people are going to come in just between 2 and 3 o'clock one day a week? Again, you can't just fish when it's convenient. You have to have the hooks in the water all the time, the chum out there kind of throwing the blood over the side of the boat to bring in the sharks. Here's a couple different things that some competitors are doing of yours. They saw us at a McAllister's Deli, work today and get paid tomorrow. People like the gig economy and doing things like Uber because they get paid right away. As you can see here on the center of your screen there, the website that a company that Chuck E. Cheese uses to basically get people to get paid quicker. If you really believe that Uber's taken away all of our people because people get paid the next day, it's very easy to replicate that part of what you think is a reason we're losing people. So think about how we can attract the right employees by putting a couple different hooks in the water. We also have to have attractive ads. As an example, when we put out a banner that says now hiring cooks and cashiers, I don't think that makes somebody really just kind of jump in our boat and say, oh my gosh, I want to come work here. You look at this ad that says now hiring school bus drivers compared to these two ads, you'll never take your work home with you. In fact, it would be illegal or make $16.25 an hour doing what most parents do for free. These two ads will attract far more people than now hiring. So when you think about putting out a now hiring banner, I would tell you to look at maybe the approach that a Chick-fil-A does, who does a phenomenal job with their people. It doesn't say now hiring cooks and cashiers. It says now investing in hospitality professionals. This was in Texas, where the minimum wage is significantly lower than the numbers you see on the screen here. But many of us look at that, and I'm in a sandwich business. It's hard for me to think about paying $10, $12, $14 an hour, but when I have a $9 an hour person and I'm short-staffed and I'm paying overtime, I'm paying $13.50. And if I can hire one rock star $14 an hour person versus two $8 an hour people, and I can get better service and end up lowering my labor costs and providing a better guest experience, you have to think of things differently, because what got you to where you are today, chances are it probably has you saddled down with 20% C players that really hurt your business instead of helping your business. So think about how you can effectively put out a more effective bait. In this case, they're not looking for cooks and cashiers. They're looking for hospitality professionals. This talks to a different person. The next place you need to think about going to fish is doing job fairs. There are city job fairs around all the time. There's some that are put on by the Chamber of Commerce. Maybe it's in your shopping center, or in this case, like in an airport. But again, when all the sharks come into one location to look for bites, you have to be there. So take a look outside. The other thing I would strongly urge, especially if you're looking for part-time help, especially this time of year, a lot of high schools will do a career fair at lunch. I've sat in a high school cafeteria for a couple hours with Whataburger and Chick-fil-A and a bank and Smoothie King and some other places. And we got to just sit there and not only just hand out coupons for the high school kids to come eat at our restaurants, but we were hiring people to come work for us. And where else can you sit in front of an audience of 2,000 or 3,000 people that are potential applicants? You have to go out there and look. So contact your local community college, especially if you're looking for servers or nighttime help or bartenders, and looking at the high schools for part-timers. And then check with the Chamber of Commerce, your landlords, and some of those other things if you're in big shopping centers, because there's a lot of job fairs around, very minimal if no cost other than your time. And it's a great way to have some sharks kind of jump in your boat. Now, in regards to looking at what goes on inside your own restaurants, I think you do need to look at your guests. I think this sign on the side of the screen, this was a sticker on the restroom mirror. I think Buffalo Wild Wings has done a phenomenal job. They're trying to attract their guests. Employees must wash their hands before collecting tips and paychecks and rubbing them in the faces of their envious friends. First of all, we get by the health department, employees must wash their hands sign. But secondly, this is a very subtle place to promote hiring versus putting a big old now hiring banner outside. When somebody at Buffalo Wild Wings likes beer, swing, and sports, they go to the restroom, they've got an ad there, and it makes sense. The piece you see on the other side, that's actually the drive-through at one of my restaurants. I actually have it on the window. It's just simply an apply on the go card that somebody can take, and we actually get a fair number of applications this way. And a lot of times what I found and learned a little bit of a lesson is the kid would come in for an interview, because we get a text the minute they fill this out. They get a text to go finish the rest of our recruitment process, but we then get in touch with them, and I'll talk to them, or my manager will talk to them, and they'll say, well, have you ever been to which? No, I haven't. Well, how'd you get the card? And we found more often than not it was a mom, a dad, a neighbor, the person that they babysat for. They knew that guests knew that they knew somebody looking for a job. They love our brand. They know what kind of people they want to work there, and it creates a very effective applicant flow for us to help get some more people coming into the system. So I'll show you a little bit more about these kind of things down the road. But the other thing that I learned from one of our competitors, I had a mall location for a long time, and one of my cashiers came up and gave me this one day. Obviously, he was my best cashier, phenomenal job, very friendly, and the Apple store used to be located downstairs from our restaurant, and he was obviously doing a great job and being friendly to the guests, and he got this card handed to him by the Apple store person who was eating in our restaurant. And this is another thing that you all should have all the time. You always need to be fishing. You should have a card similar to this. I use the cards that I have in the Apply on the Go, where they can literally just click a QR code or a short link to apply online. You have to have these cards with you all the time. So when you're out and about, whether you're in uniform or not, on the clock or off the clock, you always got to be hiring. So when you notice somebody, this is a great way to really throw out a little bit of recognition to them, make them probably catch their attention, and hopefully get them to come work for you. So always be hiring. These next couple things may require a little bit of work, but when kids aren't working, heck, even nowadays when they are working, they're always on their phone and they're on social media, but they follow hashtags. And so very, very inexpensively, you can throw stuff on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook with hashtags and those kind of things, because as an example, somebody may not know who which is, but if they're looking down here for a restaurant job and they follow the hashtag restaurant jobs or New Braunfels or whatever the case may be, this is a great way for them to see. And then they click on the short code there. And if you really can do a great job somewhere, whether it's on a web server or on your web page, I've seen Chipotle and Raising Cane's and Panera. They all do a phenomenal job having videos about what it's like to be a day in the life there. Or you imagine if you saw a hashtag and somebody clicks on it and it takes you to Chipotle's career page, and it's a video of somebody that says, hey, I started making burritos at $10 an hour, and now I'm a restaurateur making six figures. Those recruitment messages are so much more effective than a now hiring ad. Craigslist with a link to these things are phenomenal. This generation loves reality. They don't want corporately produced, fake, canned stuff. Get your employees, get your managers that have been with you a long time to do a real kind of a raw iPhone type video, put it up, create the link to go there, and that helps tell the story. So those are the kind of things that you need to do to put the bait in the water, to get the sharks coming up to your boat. Now we just got to reel them in. So a couple things. I think many of you on the phone probably think you're rock star interviewers, and your gut can tell you. I thought I was like that until we started working with the company that PALS uses to hire their people. Because I'm like, how do you find somebody that has a sense of urgency like I've never seen before, that knows if they come in 2 times in 6 months, if they come in 2 times late, they're going to be fired? How do you find all the good ones? And it's very simple. They use an assessment. And I love assessments. There's a number of them out there. I'd be happy to talk offline with who they are. But I've seen too often where somebody comes in, and as an example here, somebody fills out this application here and they're a red. I don't want my manager thinking the gut feel he or she knows better. And so these are tools that we use. They're not absolutes. I've seen some people that scored red that are 16-year-old kids applying for their first job, and we still talk to them. But these type of things give you guidance and help you, just like the NFL team doing a combine. These are kind of some of the tests. And as an example, with me, you can see what I'm looking for: integrity, persistence, service orientation, situational judgment, teamwork. Those are the things that I believe for my brand will help us. And so when we have somebody come in to fill out an application, We have them do it online. They take the assessment. Most of the kind of slacker applicants won't even ever get this far because it's too much work. So we use this as the first test to get through. And then when they come in to do interviews, similar to IKEA, make a chair and take a seat. IKEA, you build furniture, right? You're buying furniture to put together. That's what they're looking for. Your interviews need to be behavior-based. Let's go up here and role play this. Let's go back in the back. Show me how you do this. Let's go up to the register and role play. You sell me your favorite food at your last job. I've heard that Chick-fil-A teaches their managers to knock a pen off the table to see if the person picks it up, to see if they have a service aptitude. There are so many little things you can do with behavior-based interviews, and the simplest thing on this is to avoid hypothetical situations. Don't ask an employee, what would you do if? If you saw somebody steal, what would you do? They're going to give you the answer you want to hear. They're going to reinforce your gut feel. You're asking leading questions. When you put an assessment together with behavior-based questions such as, hey, I saw you were a cashier at fast food place X. Did you ever see an employee give free food to their friends? Yes. Oh, you did? Okay. What did you do? Well, I didn't do anything. That's what you're going to get. Versus if you saw somebody give free food to your friends, what would you do? They're going to tell you the right answer. So make sure all your interview questions are behavior-based. To that end, I learned a valuable lesson from an 18-year-old kid that worked for me one time. He says, why do you guys always make all the hiring decisions? You don't have to work with everybody. Why don't you let us be involved? And I took a little ego bruise there because I thought, hey, we're pretty good at this, but I learned a valuable lesson. So if we like somebody, now we let them walk around, because I'm 53 years old. If I'm interviewing an 18-year-old kid, I'm old enough to be their dad, almost old enough to be their grandfather, and or I'm their high school principal. And so now when I let them walk around with an 18-year-old peer, they're talking, hey, what's it like to really work here? And they're so much more open, the applicant is, with somebody their age versus somebody that's perceived as an authority figure. So make sure your interviews are behavior-based, and I would strongly urge you to let your team member be involved, at least if something as simple as a store tour where they can go around kind of in an unassuming environment and talk. Once we get them in, now comes the training part. And I don't know who's on the call, so I don't know if you're parts of a big chain, if you're independents, but Richard Branson said, train them well enough they can leave, but treat them well enough that they don't. We need to train our employees so well they can't get it wrong. Too many restaurants train them barely enough, just get it right, and then we walk away. Well, it's not habit yet. It's not built into their DNA, and that's one of the things I learned from PALs that they do extremely well. They train them so well they can't get it wrong. Amateurs practice until they get it right. Pros practice until they can't get it wrong, is the old saying. So if you're in a chain and you've got a bunch of training materials, awesome. This generation wants sound bites. They want clips. They don't want to memorize stuff. They just want to know what they need, where they need, when they need. So leverage that. If you're in an independent and you don't have a lot of training resources, first off, just Google. You can find any food knowledge, allergies, beer knowledge, wine and liquor, you name it, it's on Google or YouTube. Spend a little bit of time finding some of these links. There's tons of stuff on customer service. Almost any speaker worth their salt has something out there. So use the off-the-shelf materials. There's a ton of vendors that will provide things for you. Jim Sullivan and I, as an example, did a booklet called Tips for Better Tips a couple of years ago with Coke. We're teaching people how to make more money as servers, because if they make more money for us, they're less likely to leave. Heinz did something very similar with A1, Coca-Cola. I'm sure Pepsi and Cisco and US Foods and all the big vendor groups that we all use, all the alcohol companies have this stuff. So ask your vendors what sort of stuff they have available. If you're a full service restaurant, go to Google Cornell Mega Tips. There was a college study that was done a number of years ago that has 14 behaviors that are proven to improve tip percentages. It's not every one of the 14 is not right for every restaurant, but if you want to teach your servers how to make more money, train them better, train them so they can perform at a higher level, your service levels go up, you're going to benefit as a restaurant owner, your employees are going to benefit because their tips are going to go up. And so if you can teach your employees how to make more money, they're going to stay. A couple of the things that I learned from PALS was flashcards. We've got to just, when it's slow, we just created some flashcards. I just kind of knocked off their deal, made a simple thing here. You can actually, I did this in my stores, and my daughter was like, come on, flashcards, really? There's an app called Flashcard Machine. You can put it in an app so that when it's slow or there's a lull in the business, the manager can be quizzing the employees, or they can use them for their pre-shift meetings, because we want to reinforce to people every single day what they need to do, because if they know it and it's habit, they don't have to think. There's no slowing down. There's no likelihood of mistakes. And those are the kind of things that I learned from pals. That's how you push 200 cars through a drive-through with no mistakes. It's just a matter of making everybody an expert. We've taken a bunch of the videos, whether it's ones we've created on our own or that we found online, and we just put QR codes in the station so the employees can come up. And as an example, if I've had an accuracy problem in my restaurant, maybe based on the guest surveys, I have everybody, once they clock in, depending on what position you're working, 1, 2, or 3, click on the accuracy video. So they, right before they get into their station, it's kind of like a huddle before a football play. Hey, focus on order accuracy. These are the things that we miss in this position. Make sure we got them right. The other thing is, I saw this with KFC now, and again, you think about this generation, KFC's testing Alexa in their kitchen so that if somebody does, if you think about that, amazing, because now they don't have to take off their gloves, grab a book, get away from their station, go find the thing, or try and find something on their phone. That's pretty, they simply can ask a question and get the answer. This generation loves that kind of stuff. Don't fight it. And it's amazing when you can do things like this, you become the cool, progressive place to work. And those are the kind of things that help you attract the right kind of people. So those are a few training tactics that are out there. The last piece I want to talk about is reward and retention. I learned this when I worked at Chuck E. Cheese, because any kid that goes to Chuck E. Cheese, they win tickets, they save tickets, they buy stuff. We put that into our restaurants, and I would strongly urge you to have some sort of recognition currency. We just use a little business card with our logo on it. They're worth $0.25. My managers can give them out for above and beyond behaviors. A&W restaurants in Canada give out poker chips worth $1. This is not to bribe people. This is to use them for above and beyond behaviors. So if I get a great comment from a guest, somebody's named in a survey, I can give them 5 or 10 cards. If I need to use this to, if a manager sees somebody grabbing a high chair to help a guest, as an example, those are the kind of things that we can reward for above and beyond. This type of simple solution just gives you a currency to use, and the employees can save them for whatever they want, for whenever they want. That way we can kind of have a good system for recognition, so people don't think it's hit or miss, it's not fair. And so here's a couple incentive ideas as we get closer to the end here. One, a lot of restaurants have check average contests. This could be cashiers for full service or QSR. This could be server, bartender in the full service environment. I really don't care what people sell. I just want them to sell a little extra something. To me, that's what sales stands for. Sell a little extra something. Don't get everybody competing against each other all the time, because the people that work the busier shifts, the people that work the best stations, they're always going to win those type of contests. Pit everybody against themselves. So in this example, if a server or a cashier has a check average of $12, and we tell them, look, you're going to get 10% of anything you get me above what you're doing at $12 an hour right now. And in this case, if they get their check average at $12.50, they help 200 people at the register that day, they made you $100 more. If I give them enough smart cards or poker chips to be worth $10, I ended up getting an incremental $90 after that, less my cost of goods sold. But again, I made more money doing this. If I didn't give them any incentive, I'm making $12 an hour, $12 a person times 200. Now I'm making $12.50 a person times 200 and paying a little bit of that to the employees. Get the employees to challenge themselves. You can certainly rank them to get them to compete against each other, but from a full service standpoint, teach them that it's not just $120 a day that they go home with. And in this example, if they're at $800 a shift at 15%, it's $120 a day, roughly $30,000 a year. If we can teach them how to sell more and serve better, now they're making $162 a day. And the typical problem they're going to do is they're going, I made 120, now I made 160. I worked a lot harder, but it's only $40. That's not worth it. Well, $40 over the course of 250 shifts in a year is over $10,000. So now instead of who wants to come to my manager meeting or my server meeting, it's, hey, who wants a $10,000 raise? Here's how you make $10,000 more dollars. And so you've got to teach your employees how to make money. And I guarantee if their tip percentage goes up, that means the guests believe you're taken care of better. They're going to come back more often and tell more other people, and they're also going to spend more money, as you see here. Last couple things, we've done things I call them fraction of the action. We do catering referral bonuses because those are big for me in the lunch kind of set sandwich business. But anywhere you can put in a fraction of the action. In this case, I give people 10% of any order, catering order, that they go out and get us. And there's people, the biggest check I've had to write is $500. Somebody got me a $5,000 catering order simply talking to a guest in the dining room. They would have never done that if they didn't have the incentive. In the back of the house or at your bar, if you have a food cost issue or a bar cost issue, and you're trying to get costs in line, the employees don't care about it when it's your money. They care about it when it's their money. So give them an incentive, not a raise, but an incentive or a profit share to get them to help you lower your costs. Because now they'll care about it, or if there's one or two employees that aren't caring about it, they'll start self-policing everybody else. During my slow times a year, we give out coupons to the employees. They write their names on them. They get 25 cents for every one redeemed. There's a little bit of an integrity thing we have to go through with this, and I can cover that offline with anybody, but I want everybody in my restaurant to think like a salesperson. And if they want to make more money, I need more hours. I need more sales to give them more hours so they can make more money, or they can help me market and go out and do feet on the street and hand these out to the local businesses or the offices, or when somebody walks in with a name tag from a company, they can find out how many people they have and give them to take back to the office or take back to that retail establishment. This last one works great. It's called Gator. I learned this from pals. It's get all the orders right. And if you can think about it, we used to use a similar contest at Chuck E. Cheese when I worked there. You have $1 up in the expo line, and it could be a virtual dollar, not a real one up there in the middle of the shift. But anytime a mistake is made, anytime something goes over our set cook time, $1 comes down. You split what's left at the end. Because what ends up happening is we're trying to teach teamwork in the kitchen. We're trying to make sure that everything looks great and comes out on time. And so, again, self-policing, what will happen is if somebody's struggling over at the fry station, the grill guy that's that's got a lull, he may go over and help that person to make sure that we don't lose any money. People care about the money when it's their own, even if it's simple, just a few dollars. So I'm going to open it up here for just a couple questions in a second, but kind of to give you a recap of the session, we got to get rid of the C players. They're a walking billboard to scare applicants away. You got to know what employees you need. You got to know the talent chips they possess, and you've got to be disciplined to go out there and fish where they are. You got to be involved with really cool, effective ads. You got to have a social presence, hopefully put some videos together so that you can go out and attract the right kind of people once you get them in the door. You have got to be disciplined enough to train them until they don't have to think. It has to become habit. You got to really kind of communicate and think in their language. My old friend Jim Knights is trained in the language they dream in. You know, that's where this Alexa kind of stuff comes on in videos and quick snippets versus long training videos like in the movie Waiting, where you throw somebody in front of the VCR for an hour and a half. And ultimately, you have to reward the performers. The A players can become A+, the B+. C players will never be above average. You're not shooting for average. Reward the people that drive your business. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for questions, and hopefully we've got a little bit of time here. I think we do. So
yeah.
If you have a question, I guess, go ahead.
Thank you, TJ, so much for that informative presentation and all of your incredible suggestions and guidance. We do have a few questions to start, but as a reminder for those on the webinar, you can type in your questions in your question pane that you see in your GoToWebinar, and we'll do our best to get through all the questions in the next 4 to 5 minutes. If we finish before, we'll just go ahead and conclude, but we'll kick things off. One question we have is going back to everything involved with recruiting and, you know, say whether you're a smaller independent operator or, you know, a franchisee really working with a team to recruit. How can you really take some steps to ensure that those on your team who may be responsible for hiring or, helping you hire, they really do follow through with all the various ways in which to recruit?
Well, again, it's probably different if you're in a smaller group like where I am, where I can kind of manage it all and do all the recruiting piece for my managers and let them do the hiring piece. I think you just really have to have real clear communications and talk about what's working and what's not working, and make sure you're using everything that's out there. Because again, if I want to go catch a shark, if there's 10 of us out there and we're fishing in the right area, we can actually multiply our effectiveness. But if somebody's off not doing things the way they're supposed to be or not using all the tools, they're just wasting their time. So I've seen a lot of larger organizations track things such as cost per hire. They literally do an ROI on every sort of recruiting marketing message they have out there. And so if you track the things that are working, or track the people that are doing the things that you want versus doing the things you don't want, I think that'll help you get everybody on the same page. And one of the things, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I'm not if you're a know-it-all, good luck. I learned a bunch of stuff from 18-year-old kids on how to recruit and hire better. So just be open to suggestions for folks, because we didn't even talk about referral bonuses. I've seen a lot of companies use referral bonuses and those kind of things. So you got to really be promoting those type of things internally, because just like the coupons going out, everybody's a salesman. You want everybody to be a recruiter as well. And so the more you can talk about that and reward those kind of things internally, I think the more effective they'll be for you.
Great, thank you. And along the lines of recruiting and all of the resources available to post jobs, some are maybe at cost, or it could be pretty costly to recruit via some of these sites such as Indeed or Snag a Job. And with those who may have very small budgets, how do you decide where to, quote unquote, put your bait for recruiting?
Good question. I think it does take a little bit of trial and error. I know I have found that, as an example, Snag a Job for me works in certain areas, certain markets better than others, and you should be able to talk to the reps for those brands, because if they know, as an example, I have a store 45 minutes outside of Austin. If they don't have a lot of job seekers in that zip code, I'm not likely to use them. But on the flip side, like Snag a Job, Career Plug, Career Arc, some of these other companies, I pay a monthly fee to Career Plug that's not really that expensive, but they post everything to Indeed. So I get tons of applications. If I put something up in our system through Career Plug, because they're out there sneezing it out to all the other job boards. And so, I'll try, if I have a need in a restaurant, I try one or two things, see if they work. If they don't, I kind of reassess and go back to the other one. And I know it's expensive, and believe me, I'm in the sandwich business, I'm in the penny profit business. And when I have to put out a $99 job post, I know it's hard to kind of choke down that $100, but when you're short staffed and you're paying overtime, or you have turnover rates that are 150%, you're wasting so much money on labor that if you can fix that problem, which is fixing your retention problem, you have plenty of money to go recruit. And then the good thing is your recruitment's all proactive, and it's all on upgrades versus desperation and reactive, where you're just throwing money at it and wasting a bunch because you're in desperate times.
Thank you. Another question: when you know you are already short-staffed but you still have C players, would you run with those players until they can be replaced, or do you think that this lowers the standards and expectations in the business?
If I didn't own a restaurant, what I would be telling you would be theoretical, and I would understand it if you didn't believe me, because it's very easy for a consultant to say, oh, get rid of the C players and run short staff. That's very pie in the sky. But having been in this situation before, it is difficult, but it's the right decision to at least minimize the C player hours as much as you can and pay more overtime to A's or B's, because you're not going to run your guests off. And there are a lot of employees that want to make more money. And I have no problem, and I would strongly recommend that if you got to cut hours, cut them from a C player and give them to the A or B player, because ultimately the C player is going to need to go. And if that helps them go faster, I just see too many restaurants, they cut the hours of the A's and B's because it's a slow time of year, and the C player has no penalty for being below average. And the more you can put your guests first and your performers right there with them and put the C player last in line, the better your business will be.
Great. Thank you again so much. This takes us to the end of our questions and the end of our time today. But I really sincerely thank you, TJ, for sharing again your insights and expertise on all things hiring and retention. I know we could go on and on this topic and look certainly to the future to be able to provide more content like this. And speaking of, we do have downloadable presentations and session recordings still available on the webinars coming beyond. And coming up in October 23rd, we will have Donnie Medea and Kevin Bohm discussing what chains can learn from independence. So we have a lot of great resources available that you can tap into. Please keep a lookout for registration details to come. Thank you again, TJ. Thank you all for attending and joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful day.